Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Astro Consciousness channel. I'm Millie, and I am here to give you your forecast for the lunar eclipse in Pisces taking place on September 17th, 2024. In this channel, we talk about the astrological energy ahead and how you can incorporate it into your daily and spiritual growth. We are in the middle of this eclipse season, getting ready to welcome the first eclipse of the season. And I want to start off by saying that the eclipse itself is not going to bring anything that you haven't already been intuiting, thinking about, feeling, or experiencing. I think that this Virgo season has done a really great job at highlighting what this lunar eclipse is about. For those of you who have purchased the eclipse guide, I talked to you a lot about more of the soul lessons around this lunar eclipse in Pisces. And I gave you future dates and additional information that is going to support the understanding of this lunar eclipse. So if you haven't bought your eclipse guide yet, go ahead and do that because it's a beautiful overview of what this lunar event represents for years to come and a few of the future lunar events, right? Okay, so let's get started. So before I begin, I want to give you some past dates so that you can go back in time. For those of you avid journalers, this is when your journals come in handy so well, because you get to go back, right? You get to go back in time and see what was I doing in this year? What was I doing at this time? Now, I'm going to go pretty far back because the last time that we had eclipses with the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo was back in 2006, 2007. So think about what was going on for you around that time. For those of you that are Pisces or Virgos, that's going to be a huge indicator as to something significant in your life coming to an end that made room and space for something else to come in, right? Now, the following time that we had eclipses in Virgo Pisces was 2015-ish, right? We had one at the end of 2015, which was a solar eclipse in the sign of Virgo, but then they really took place in 2016 and 2017. The difference is that the South Node was in Pisces at that time, and the North Node was in Virgo at that time. Okay, so what are we talking about here? We are talking about the axes of the zodiac that represents how we bring order, how we bring something tangible, how we remain grounded in something that we feel we can get lost in something that we feel that has a different connection to something greater, to the ethereal, or something we believe in some way, shape, or form gets us to that level of connection, okay? So when we're talking about Pisces energy, we are talking about the energy that reminds us of something greater than ourselves, of the understanding that it's not just this tangible world that exists, that there is something beyond the 3D that we experience. Now, thank goodness, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that understanding. I think that Pisces' gift to the rest of the zodiac, what Pisces teaches the rest of us, is that there are things in life that are not quantifiable in the way that we quantify things in this human 3D reality. But then what happens when we get in touch with Virgo energy? Well, Virgo energy reminds us, but there are things that need to be quantifiable. There are things that we do need to bring some kind of grounded, tangible order in. Otherwise, we will get lost. We will get lost and taken over, washed away, if you will, by all of that Piscean energy. Stephen Forrest talks about the energy of Pisces as the ability to understand that this life brings with it suffering, that this life brings with it a lot of circumstances that we cannot understand. But the true process of individuation and emotional and spiritual growth comes when we don't get swept away by it, when we don't get consumed by it. Okay, so what does this mean to us? What does this mean to us in eclipses? What does this mean to us when we think back to 2006, 2007, late 2015 into 2016 into 2017? That we had to somehow really remove something from our lives that probably felt like a soulful connection or something that we deemed had a sense of permanence in our lives, and we had to let go of it, right? Now, does this mean that we are going to lose the same things again, right? Air quotes, lose the same things again, that we're going to experience the same things again? I think it depends on everyone's path. You want to check, right, where Pisces and Virgo are in your chart. Think back to 2006, 2007, then again from late 2015 into 2017. What are the things that changed? What are the things that you kind of felt lost in, right? That Pisces energy that you had to ground, that you had to learn to ground. This axis of the zodiac has so much to do with habits. So perhaps there was a habit or there was a way that you did things that had to do with your body, had to do with your health, with your daily routine, all Virgo energy. And let's say that this happened, let's go back to the nearest set of eclipses, which was 2015, 16, and 17. The South Node in Pisces was showing you, what am I getting lost in that needs some structure? How am I getting lost in my day-to-day? How am I getting lost in bad habits? How am I getting lost in the delusion of something? What am I putting rose-colored glasses on that it's not serving me? And perhaps we had been there for a while. And the North Node in Virgo at that time said, we got to cut this out. We have to see things for what they are. For those of you, again, who have the eclipse guide or have listened to the last two forecasts here on YouTube, I've talked a lot about how Virgo represents taking stock and audit of certain things in our lives so that we understand what we have to become responsible for. And so think back again to 2015, 16, and 17, and how there was something that came up for you that you had to put structure to, that you had to say, I have to cut that out. I have to create a different routine, a different set of habits around that. I'll share something personal with you. I have Pisces in the 6th house of daily routine, body, health. And at the time, the South Node transited my 6th house, and 2016 was the year that I became vegan. And I have been vegan ever since. So I cut out meat from my diet, right? That came from an understanding of my body is speaking to me differently. 6th house. I understood the compassion for animals in a different way, right? 6th house having to do with animals. So what did I make space for? I made space by cutting out meat. I made space for compassion towards animals in my life. I made space for more fruits and veggies, right? But what ended up happening in the long run is that the shift in my body, in my health, and in everything was quite noticeable in a really positive way. So where the South Node transits, it's here to remove something in order to make space for it. Okay, fast forward to this set of eclipses that's going to take us into 2025, 2026, and partially into 2027 for other transits that are much bigger than this. Now, the North Node will be in Pisces, and the South Node will be in Virgo. The South Node in Virgo is asking us, what do we know about what works? What do we know about what doesn't? What have we been taking stock and audit of in our lives, within ourselves, in the way that we think, in the way that we speak, in the way that we do life on a daily basis, in our routines? Do they serve us? Do they not? And what do I know that I have to remove, that I have to change, that, by the way, is going to really remove and change over the next, at least the next year, right? Because the North Node in Pisces is expansive. Because the North Node in Pisces is saying, when you imagine the best case scenario, when you imagine what you're capable of sustaining and holding, it's much bigger than you might think. Now, the way that each person is going to experience this absolutely depends on their level of consciousness and self-awareness. Because what I'm saying to you right now is that with the expansiveness of the North Node in Pisces and the growth in that, the spiritual growth in that, which, by the way, isn't all puppy dogs and ice cream, right? Because spiritual growth, especially in Pisces, is the understanding of everything comes to an end. My life at some point will come to an end. So what am I really living for on a daily basis? South Node in Virgo. So this is asking much bigger questions. And if you have been following my videos over the last several months, I have been talking about this story that is unfolding, this story about how we come closer and closer to our inner most divine guidance, which I think a lot of it has to do with Pisces, and begin to come from that place. Why? Because Saturn in Pisces has represented that all along. I've said this a few times and I'll say it again, and I'll probably say it some more for as long as Saturn is in Pisces. Saturn represents that which we are committed to. And in some cases, it's that which we feel obligated to, right? Saturn in Pisces is asking us, what am I devoted to? What do I want to be devoted to? Devotion, hopefully, is coming from a soul place. This is what I show up for on a day-to-day. For those of you with the eclipse guide, when I extended the new moon in Virgo lesson in that guide for you, I talked about a sense of ceremony, of ritual. Life gets to be a ritual. Virgo and Pisces, I feel, is the axis of the zodiac that really blends in the ethereal and the material, right? The soul and the ego. Because when we're talking solely about Pisces energy, Pisces is the understanding there's a much kinder way. In a higher expression, there's a much kinder way. There's a much more compassionate way. There's a much more tender way, softer way to approach life, to do this life. And anyone who's a Pisces, my heart goes out to them because Pisces is this energy that if the person is not grounded, right, in the fact that we have to have this human experience, it will constantly, that person will constantly feel a sense of disappointment in the way that this world works. And really, when you think about it, wherever you have Pisces in the zodiac, in your chart, it can represent a constant disappointment. Why can't things just be this way? Why can't we be kinder? Why does this have to end, right? So again, I'll go back to an example of my chart, right? That's just what I have in mind. Pisces in the 6th house of daily work, daily routine. I have Jupiter and Pisces there. There is nothing more fulfilling to me than this work. And so my Jupiter and Pisces there, it's like, this is where I find my joy, my expansion, and I'm a Capricorn, so I get to work. Work is a joy. But what tends to happen on the flip side? Sometimes I have to stop working. Sometimes I can't get lost, right? Very Pisces. I can't get lost in my books all day, every day. Because I have a home, because I have a partner, because I have a dog, because I have friends. And all of those people I actually love and like, right? Virgo, things have to come to an end. And maybe not permanently. Now, this can also be a measure, right? So that we don't overindulge. Because wherever we have Pisces, there can be an element of, I just want to get so lost in this that I just want to block out the world. This is why Pisces in the zodiac represent drugs and hallucinogens and anything that gets you away from this grounded reality. And this isn't about judgment of good and bad around those things, but think about it. If you're someone who dabbles, right, or has experienced like microdosing or doing magic mushrooms for healing, you can't possibly be on magic mushrooms all day long, every single day, because I'm assuming you have things to do. I'm assuming you have work to get to be able to do the daily things that are your responsibility. Okay, so I think you have a grasp on the themes that this lunar eclipse in Pisces is bringing our way. And it matters that we understand this because this lunar eclipse in Pisces, it's a full moon eclipse, which means that it's 3 full moons in one. That is the energy of it, 3 full moons in one, in the last sign of the zodiac. And this is the first eclipse of that axis, of that series. We are just beginning to understand, oh, this is the old paradigm that's really, really leaving. And for some of you, it truly manifested in August or sometime in September of something significant that ended, and it's moving, it's kind of washing away, right? The waves of the ocean with this lunar eclipse in Pisces. Okay, so let's talk about the eclipse for a little bit. So this is a lunar eclipse in Pisces at 25, 26 degrees Pisces. And let's talk about what the rulers of Pisces are doing. Let's start with Neptune. Neptune is at 28 degrees Pisces, which means that it's right next to the moon. This is a really beautiful combination of energies. Because when we're talking about Neptune and we're talking about the moon, we're talking about something psychic, something so deep within ourselves that in the sign of Pisces, it feels like an emotional culmination taking place, and it can feel like a ball of emotion, of energy. I wouldn't be surprised if the week of the eclipse is quite emotional for some people, and if you experience, some sleepiness or tiredness. But the moon conjunct Neptune is, I think, one, it really thins the veil, if you will, between, again, the physical and the ethereal, the material and the ethereal, the spirit and not. The acceptance, the surrender, the actual feeling of surrender of, this is what I have to let go of. And in Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac, there can be an element of grief, of mourning. I think more grief, of the understanding of, man, that played such a significant role in my life for so long. And now I feel in my body this emotional, healthy, hopefully, detachment and separation, and the readiness to let it go. Because if not, we drown in the weight of what we want to hold on to and we can't. When we think of Neptune, think of the ocean. We cannot control the ocean. We cannot outdo the ocean. The ocean absolutely 1,000% outpowers us. That's what this is. I have a good friend who always reminds me, when you think you've surrendered, surrender some more. And when you think you've surrendered, surrender a little more. And when you think you've surrendered, surrender some more. Because when we surrender to the higher expression of Pisces is the remembering of spirit, Christ, the divine, right? Don't let that Christ word trigger you. I'm not talking about it in a religious context. That's not even what Pisces represents. I'm talking about it from the understanding that we are going to really, really begin to see how there's something really greater at work and always supporting us. So the notion of surrendering and then surrendering some more and then surrendering some more to a situation that has come to an end or to a turning point can feel like I'm losing things left and right, or I'm losing people left and right. How do I surrender to this experience of loss, right? And I don't want to scare you. That's not the point, because I think that transition and loss can look different for different people, right? Because we can also lose or let go of a relationship dynamic or a way of thinking, right? And so the transition from that to this is a practice. And it is something that we have to show up day in and day out for. That fulfills that Virgo energy. So anyway, we go back to Neptune in conjunction to the moon. I think that this can be quite a visceral experience. The moon actually does also represent the body. And I think this is going to be a very visceral physical experience for people. And crying can feel very, very cleansing. The acceptance, the ultimate acceptance of something, it's liberating. I cannot unsee what I've seen. And the thing is that with Saturn, having been in Pisces for over a year now, we've seen it. We've seen it. It's just taken some time. And here comes this first lunar eclipse in Pisces that says, remember what I've been showing you for about a year and a half? That you've said, no, maybe I can make it work, right? No, this is what I'm committed to. No, but this is stable, safe. Yeah, that's not what your soul wants or needs right now. Okay. Now let's look at Saturn. Saturn is also right next to the moon and Neptune, right? Saturn is at 15 degrees Pisces. The reminder of, what am I devoted to? What do I actually want to devote myself to? How am I committed to my soul's desire? How am I committed to that inner wisdom? If your desire or your vision is not clear right now, that's okay. Because really what this is asking for is, how are you committed, Saturn, to the higher self with a capital S? And that's that Pisces energy. But Saturn is retrograde right now. And I think that that's a gift, because Saturn retrograde has been the retracing of the steps that get us closer and closer to that divine essence and energy within. And so here we have this energy that, with the moon and Neptune, a boundless kind of energy, and Saturn there, it's not necessarily containing it, but it's reminding us of, this is what I've been showing you. This is what I have been showing you. And now it just so happens to be so felt in your body, in your experience, that you can't deny it. And Saturn, wherever it's at, will always remind us of the responsibility that we have to look at the things before us, to look at the things that are in our life with the utmost honesty, because that is our responsibility. Responsibility implies the ability to respond to a situation, especially when it is undeniable. And I think that this lunar eclipse brings this essence of undeniability. And so surrendering to the unfolding of that undeniability while remaining committed to ourself and our soul's evolution, because remember, that's what eclipse seasons are about. They are moments in which the ego is meant to take a step back And we're meant to allow our souls to have the lessons that they signed up for in this lifetime. That is what eclipse seasons are about. And so if we don't understand that, if we refuse to understand that, this is when we may have a difficult time with eclipses. Okay, so now let's talk about Jupiter and Gemini. This Jupiter, the second ruler of Pisces. And what Jupiter in Gemini is doing a few things. First of all, it's creating a beautiful trine to Venus and Libra. Whenever we have a connection between Jupiter and Venus, there is an essence of luck, of growth, potentially of money. Venus and Libra, the energy of negotiations, partnerships, contracts, one-on-one collaborations, working one-on-one with people. The connection to Jupiter and Gemini, it's like when you leave that, when you allow this lunar eclipse in Pisces to take that, you make room and space for this growth and expansion. And I love that both Jupiter and Venus are in air signs. It is the energy of this is the next logical step. This is the next thing to do. Now, does this mean that all of this manifests and unfolds in the month of September and October? For some people, yes, depending on where this falls on your chart, what you've been working on. But for the most part, this is an energy that starts in this eclipse season and really manifests much more in 6 months, which is the first eclipse season of 2025, which is in March and April. Jupiter and Gemini is creating a square, an aspect of tension to Saturn, the moon, and Neptune in Pisces, and creating a square to the sun in Virgo. What does that mean? The options are not available just yet. The options are not available right now, at least not clearly. So you may have options, but you may not have the clarity as to how to move forward just yet. Let the eclipses show you. Let the eclipses show you, and much more than being like, well, what about this? And what about that? And I'm going to do 10 things at once. Lean into the Virgo energy that's going to help you get grounded and show up for the things that you know you need to take care of in order to create a foundation that all of this can eventually stand on. That manifestation that Pisces promises needs a vessel. It needs something to be on. Otherwise, it remains this intangible, ethereal thing that we cannot see other than in our own imagination. The eclipses will make that happen if you show up on the day-to-day, if you show up for yourself, if you organize yourself, if you create routines. Now, you have to be mindful that you're not leaning into the extreme obsessive expression of Virgo energy, which is, I'm going to pack my day and my schedule with all the things to do. And I'm going to do all of these things every single day and aim for perfection, because then you're not making room for Pisces to do its magic. You're not making room for magical, synchronistic, serendipitous opportunity. I use those terms because as the North Node moves through Pisces, we have to be open to that. If Pisces is the sign of the zodiac that reminds us that there is much more than what we see in this material world, to me, that screams magic. I'm going to make room for magic in my life. I will show up for my responsibilities. I will take care of myself. I will do what I need to do. And I know that I don't have to do it all myself. I know that, and by that, yes, I do mean ask people for help, but I also know that there is guidance, that there is soul, that there's spirit, that when I tap into it and listen to it is guiding me to the next thing, to the next person, to being in the right place at the right time with the right people. It's time to open ourselves up and make room and space for magic. Not just because it sounds nice, not just because we're just manifesting things, but because we are part of that. We are spirit. We are soul. We're just expressing it in this human way. So how do we begin to make it a much more prominent and important part of that daily life? Those are the bigger questions. So another thing that I really love about this lunar eclipse is that it is very much grounded by a ground earth trine. This is created between the sun in Virgo at 25 degrees, Pluto retrograde in Capricorn at 29 degrees, and Uranus retrograde in Taurus at 27 degrees. The sun represents how we show up. It represents our identity, right? The vitality, the ego, and it represents this vehicle. Now, in Virgo, it's saying, in order for all of this to be grounded, everything I just talked about, the thing that we need to have spaciousness and room for, the sun in Virgo is saying, you need to get organized, whether it's getting organized in your thoughts, getting organized in your diet, getting organized in your health, in your daily routine. It's all of these things that, interestingly enough, in the world that we live in, it's kind of the things that we leave last, when it's essentially the things that we need to put first. Because without our health, we can't do much. Sometimes we can't do anything at all, right? Without a much more supportive mindset, we will never get past the thresholds of limits, of our self-imposed limits. And we will always remain in the lower expression of Virgo of judgment and mental lashing. See, you never show up for the things you said you would. You don't keep promises to yourself. See, and you start nitpicking instead. The sun in Virgo is saying, this is how you need to show up. And the commitment is really with you to you. It's yourself, right? The connection to Pluto and Capricorn and Uranus and Taurus. Notice where those planets are. They are in the last degrees of the signs that they're in. This implies that a significant chapter, a significant end is coming, and we know this. So we have these two planets that are getting ready to leave these earth signs and move into air signs. So how do we take advantage of that? We create grounded foundations. So this can mean, especially with Taurus and Capricorn, it's, we get organized with things having to do with our finances. We get organized with responsibilities in our life, in our household, how we split those responsibilities. That ground earth trine isn't just about this lunar eclipse, because remember, this is the first lunar eclipse in the series of the Virgo-Pisces. Instead, it's giving us a glimpse, a sneak peek at the overview of what it's going to take for us to make the space for what Pisces wants to bring us. This is the type of energy that is going to ask us to lean into faith, that is going to ask us to really double down on the connection to source and spirit. So I would not be surprised if, you feel much more inclined to meditation, to the connection with your intuition. That axis of Virgo-Pisces has so much to do with mental health, right? Because Virgo has to do with the day-to-day, with the body, with how that functions. And the things that we do on a day-to-day, or the things that we don't do, neglect to do on the day-to-day, have a lot to do with our mental health. Remember, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is the planet of cognitive thought. So I would not be surprised if more people perhaps lean into more therapy or a different kind of therapy, spiritual counseling, because of that North Node in Pisces. Because people are going to really begin looking outside of the constructs, the rigidity of the human mind, and really begin to seek not just answers out of curiosity, but answers to live by in their day-to-day life. And I think that that's just beautiful. Do not forget to purchase your eclipse guide. leave any comments. I'm still doing the mini horoscopes. Leave your sun, moon, rising in the comments. I'm a little behind on those. I've been pretty busy with other things, but I will go back to answer them. For those of you who purchased the eclipse guide, let me know in the comments how that's been working for you, how that ties into this lesson, how you like it, how do you like the guided meditations. For those of you who have the eclipse guide, you have a guided meditation for the lunar eclipse in Pisces. As always, may this be of service. So much love to you. I will see you next week.